Majority of African businesses do not think about cybersecurity. Organizations, companies, institutions are getting hit week by week, getting their data stolen, their reputations damaged, and a world of torment unleashed on their leaders and staff, and even customers, while there seems not to be a lot of proactive activity when it comes to securing things digitally, that is, cybersecurity. Today's conversation is about cybersecurity and how it is the missed, ignored, or neglected threat that can cause a lot of damage on the African continent. We are joined by a cybersecurity expert who's been in that space for a long time, who is going to demystify what cybersecurity is and how you ought to be thinking to secure your business and organization, and also to secure yourself to avoid those pesky cyber attacks on your social media and emails as well. In case you're new here, my name is Dennis Mburu. Welcome to the Marketing a Unique Business podcast, where we help entrepreneurs who are running unique businesses to articulate their solutions and present it to the market, as well as having conversations that can help them establish their businesses much better. Recently, and in this season, we are featuring people who are doing business differently to provide entrepreneurs with a unique perspective that can move their businesses forward, help them to become better people, and also transform their fortunes. See you on the other side. Okay, hello and welcome to today's session. Today we will be talking about the hidden threat that nobody is talking about in Africa, or rather nobody is really taking it seriously until you get hit. So today we'll be focusing on cybersecurity, and to help us with this conversation, we have a cybersecurity expert who's been in the space for a very long time. He'll tell us everything about his experience, about why taking cybersecurity seriously is very important for us, and as well as how we can protect ourselves when it comes to cybersecurity threats, especially for companies, for organizations, for big institutions which have a lot of risk when it comes to this specific space. So karibu sana, Kevin.
Thank you, Dennis. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Looks like you're really prepared for the July weather.
Yes, I am. It's almost snowing here. So yeah, I made sure I'm pretty warm today.
Yeah, the East African version of winter, I would say that's what we're experiencing
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I'm telling you. That's very true.
So perhaps you can introduce yourself, tell us about what you do, and maybe just an introduction about first what cybersecurity is and why it really matters.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Kevin Kanyi. I'm a cyber security professional, focusing on cyber defense in specific. I've been doing this as a passion, started off as a passion for the last 6 years. It should be my seventh anniversary this year. I started off way back in 2012. Yeah, and I started off just as a curious person. And by then, the domain was so new. So I ventured off to go and, okay, look for something to do. By then, we had the best was networking. You could do networking or anything in regards to systems. But I remember I stepped into this institution, and I believe it was God, because I went and asked, okay, so I want to do a course in networking. And they told me, okay, here we do not do that, you know. And they were like, but we have this interesting course which is new, and it is called Information Security and Ethical Hacking. I was like, okay, so what is it all about? They explained this is what happens. Then I went home, did my research, and the following day I was sold. I was like, this is what I want to do. So that's where my journey started off. Then I ventured off to training. I trained professionals in that space for a couple of years, and then finally in 2016, I got my first opportunity to put all that knowledge into practice. So in 2016, I started off as what we call a penetration tester. So this is someone who comes to your organization and tests your systems to validate how secure they are in terms of getting attacked or getting breached. So we used to call that security posture assessment. The same way you can go to a hospital and do a health check, we used to do that. But now, in terms of security, Then I moved from that and went a little bit more advanced to the same facet, which is called red teaming, whereby we use advanced practices to try and see how far would someone go to compromise your critical assets within your company and what would be the ultimate impact. Then in between, I switched. Rather, my boss forced me to switch, which I thank him for. And I switched to now what I love doing, which is cyber defense. And this is helping organizations to protect themselves against cyber attacks. Right. So I've traversed through different domains, probably around six or seven, and to where I sit today, solely focusing on two things. That is what I call threat intelligence and threat hunting. So threat intelligence it's amazing because I believe that's where security starts from. So threat intelligence is understanding what adversaries do, or why would someone want to attack Mboro's company? Why would someone want to attack Kevin's company? So what would be the intent? What would be the motivation behind it? Why would someone put in time? And what would be how skilled are they, or how what kind of resources do they have to come against you, right? So then now we take all that information and we use it to protect companies. Threat hunting is to actively seek for what these guys are doing. We go into your company and we check, okay, so who is doing what? How far are they? Will they succeed in whatever objectives they want to achieve? And now take that information and help the company to make wise decisions in terms of defending themselves and ultimately making sure that the business is protected and continues running as is. Yeah, so that's what I do in a nutshell.
Okay. That's it's quite a lot, and of course, I'm sure that as we continue to have this conversation, us and other people who are listening as well are going to be enlightened. And perhaps the main question that begs is, do you think cybersecurity is getting enough attention? And perhaps why would you say, or why are we saying that it is the biggest unconsidered threat when it comes to companies, people, institutions on the African continent?
Wow, Dennis, that's an amazing question. Is it getting the attention it deserves? Definitely not in the African continent. But let me introduce you to something interesting that we've observed, right? So, in the last few months, we've observed attacks that have happened on key institutions. Let me speak about Kenya. So we've noticed there's been breaches, successful breaches that have occurred, some to our government entities. Like 2 weeks ago, there's one government entity which was hit, and the data is now leaked, has been leaked, half of it as we speak today. So the kind of attention that you're getting is not from the professionals themselves, but the attention is coming from breaches which you're seeing each and every month. So ideally, that's not the best way for the domain to be noticed. The correct path is, companies should be able to understand why is cybersecurity important, especially now in the digital space, because every company transacts, or every company uses the digital platforms to probably operationalize their businesses. So there's one aspect of operationalizing your business, and there's other aspect of understanding the risk to operationalizing your business. So that's where security comes and fits in. So in the African continent, yes, a lot is being done, but you're not seeing uh, cybersecurity, rather risk being discussed. And I believe this is critical because Africa is on a high acceleration when it comes to innovation. Every day we see a fintech somewhere being launched, or funding going to a certain company, but we are not seeing security keeping up to par, or other people discussing about risks which come with with such innovations.
Okay.
So
I think, allow me to interject you there. I know that we do consider other risks in Africa, like, for example, the financial risk is always considered,
mhm,
and maybe other normal, what I would call regular business risks. But
mhm,
then, why do you think companies, in as much as we have been talking about hacking for several years now, for almost 10 years now, have
mhm.
not really taken on cybersecurity as a big risk or a serious risk for the organizations? Like, why do you think that like that is the case? Like, we are waiting for the incidents so that we can react.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So I believe it all starts with actually starts with what we call awareness, right? So you find that when someone wants to build a product, when a company is building a product, they focus on functionality, they focus on the value it will create to customers, right? So risk is secondary, So part of the reason is uh, number one is understanding that whenever you're building a solution, yes, you're building a solution to solve a need, but at the same time there are risks which come with building the solution. So that those are the questions. We are not asking the correct questions fully. You're only asking the questions of, yes, we want to solve a certain need with customer, but again, you're not asking questions, okay, so as much as you're solving the needs, what will happen? What happens to the risks that might exist as you're striving to solve customers' needs? So what I've also seen, whenever products are being developed, there are no security requirements which are put in place, or rather, there are no discussions about security. Security is brought at the tail end. And at the tail end, I mean, when the solution is almost going live, that's when people say, okay, have we actually had a look at what risks might affect our system or might affect our solution? And that's when security is introduced at the tail end of the solution being released, right? So number one is, like I said, is not having that 360 view of looking at innovation. Like also, okay, fine, we are solving a need, but what happens to risk? Who is addressing the risk? Number two, people don't really collect requirements, risk requirements, let me call them, or other security requirements, whenever they're developing solutions, right? So, give and take, for any given company, what is required is, as you're innovating a solution, you should continuously measure the risk as you develop the solution. Start measuring risk once you define the solution, and measure risk as you continuously develop the solution. So that should be the ideal way of doing things. But what you're seeing is it's being introduced at the tail end when the solution is almost going live, and now they start saying security is becoming a blocker to the
Mm.
solution getting released to customers, and now that becomes a headache. Yeah.
Now, okay. Other than, sometimes people ask, what is the worst that can happen if my company or my solution is hacked? I know I've had that question several times. And if, other than just the data being taken, of course that's a huge thing considering the data security era that we live in. What other risks do companies face when it comes to cybersecurity other than hacking and taking of data?
Wow, wow, and that's a very timely question. So, of course, the primary one is the data of your customers being exposed. Why? Because when a customer interacts with your solution, they trust that you'll secure their data, right? So, so that's one aspect. So the other aspect that affects a company is number one, reputational damage, right? So that's one thing we've seen, because whenever you're hacked and it's out there, man, your company's name is on the line, and now you're forced to take other measures to be able to try and probably um, repaint your name as a company, which usually it is never easy. Number two, possibilities of lawsuits from your customers, or lawsuits from third parties that probably the information was also leaked as part of the breach. So of course lawsuits, they never paint your picture well, and of course they paralyze your company in one way or another, right? The other thing is a loss of customers. We've seen companies whereby once customers knew the information was leaked, customers just leave and they move over to your competitor. So that clearly results to a natural death to the company, right? So internally, we've seen a lot of stuff being done. We've seen politics playing out. We've seen people getting sacked, but and also business operations halting. Right, like from the attacks we've seen today, you find that a company gets paralyzed for like a week or two. So every day they get paralyzed, they lose money. So, and if they lose money, it means the company, of course, will be affected financially. Yeah. So that those are the top concerns or other top impacts when it comes to a cyber attack. And this is something which goes cross-both. It doesn't matter if you're a big company or a small company, the same can adversely affect you.
So essentially what you're saying is the biggest risk is that the trust aspect. Of course, whenever we are building companies, the reason why companies grow is because consumers trust the companies. And essentially once you are hacked, it leads to a breach of that trust, and therefore it becomes very difficult for you to continue to build a business, or people have less trust or less confidence in working with you. I think that's what I have captured in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. Now let's talk about individuals, because, or rather, typically, let me just ask this question this way so that we can head into the individual and how you can secure yourself on the platforms you already
Okay.
use.
Okay.
Typically, how do attacks happen? I know there are very many ways, but just break it down simply into a typical situation. How does someone get attacked?
Okay. So depends. Depends on who is targeting you, right? So we've seen attacks coming from the big boys. By that I mean the nation states. So nation states are hacking groups which are funded by the government, and there are other attacks which are quite opportunistic, right? So let me focus on the opportunistic ones, because that is what might affect you and I and any other particular individual, right? So so how it happens is it can happen in various ways. I use the different scenarios from what I've seen, and also from people who have come to me with similar cases. So one, I remember it was early this year. I got a call from an individual telling me that someone had managed to rather masquerade as themselves in one of the social media platforms. So this was WhatsApp, and this person managed to send messages to all the contacts they had, asking those people for money, right? So the context was, hey, my I'm currently having an issue and I need you to sell me 5,000 shillings. Then I'll refund you the money by the end of the month. So when you're having that conversations, I came to understand how this attack unraveled. So the attack started by compromise of this particular individual's email account. And then from the compromise of the email account, this person managed to gain access to the email accounts, and the victim had backed up all their contacts in their email accounts. So what this person did, they went to their mobile device, they synced the device with the email accounts, and synced, and through that they managed to download all the contacts to their device. So once they did that, now the attacker had a number, registered the number that they were using, and then created a new WhatsApp account. And then with all those synced accounts, he managed to get all the accounts for this particular individual, go to their social media page, get a photo of them. I think they got it from Facebook, use the photo as part of their profile picture, and now start sending the messages to people for them to send them money to this new number, right? So how did they gain access to these email accounts? Ideally, the victim account, the same email and password they were using the same email and password across other platforms. So unfortunately, one of the platforms that they were using was breached like 2 years ago, and the user and the emails and the passwords were leaked. So this person, the attacker managed to find that username and password for this particular account, and tried to log in into the email. And unfortunately, the victim never changed the password after the breach. So they logged into the email account, and that's how they managed to further their attack towards even sending messages to contacts. And actually, the contact sent money to this particular individual. So that's one vertical of what we've seen, whereby you use your email and your password across the same one across different websites, across different social media platforms. And when that website gets compromised, and unfortunately your password gets leaked, and someone manages to crack your password and and find your plain text password, then that's game shot for you, right? So that's why you're always advised, do not use the same password across different accounts, because that it means when that password gets exposed, or when a breach happens to that particular website and your passwords and your email and your passwords gets leaked, then someone can use the same to gain access to all your social media platforms, right? So that's one of the common scenarios we've seen, and that we call it just an opportunistic attack, whereby unfortunately you are the victim of the day, and someone managed to take that and be able to attack your to use it to rather to compromise either your social media accounts or any other accounts that you had, right? So that's one of the verticals we've seen. Yep.
Wow. Okay. I know that we have also had a conversation about how sometimes hackers send messages pretending to be credible people.
Yes.
That's a case I've also come across, like on these social media platforms. They say you broke a copyright rule, so click here to click here to, what can I say, to correct that status to ensure that you are in good books. When you click on that link, they tell you to put in your email and your password, and from
Absolutely.
there you start receiving calls. Are you in trouble? Are you in hospital? Then,
Yes.
yeah, there are other cases also. I know that where you find someone was just chatting you and telling you to apply for a certain opportunity, and you had to create an account. Then all of
Yep.
a sudden, I think all of a sudden you lose control of everything,
Yeah.
of all your digital all your digital. Maybe you can comment a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis. Thank you for that. I wanted to get to also another story I had on the same context. So you're busy with, on your social media platforms, and someone randomly messages you and tells you, "Hey," like that example you used, that's a perfect one. Like, they send over a link, and when you click the link, there's usually a matter of urgency. You'll notice that from this particular person, they're using a script that is a pretext,
Mm.
right? And from the how the message has been coined, it will force you to quickly click the link and do what is needed because the stake is high. Let me say, right? Like if you don't do this, this is what will happen to you. So you see that there's a sense of urgency to make you to click the link. So once you click the link, it opens up a portal that probably mimics your email account, probably your Gmail account, or the portal of choice by the attacker. But remember, at the end of the day, the target is to get your username, your email, and your password. The target is to get your credentials. This is the ultimate goal of the attacker, right? Because they know once they get your email account and your password, that's it. They can log into your email, and you can imagine how many things do we keep in our email accounts. I mean, almost everything, right? So once they have access to your email account, that's it. And we are no longer just keeping anything about sensitive documents, but now you're even backing up your contacts to your email account. So that makes your email account a crown jewel to any particular attacker, because then once I have access to this, then I have access to probably this person's entire life, right? So that's also something else we've seen. Trusting people from social media that you don't even talk to. Another option that might be the trust might be natural, the trust might be built. So how can this be done? An attacker might compromise Dennis's social media account and then use his account to target me. Whereby when the attacker is sending me that malicious link, they use the account of Dennis and then they send the link to me. So naturally, I trust Dennis. We've been talking to him. So whenever he sends me a link, I'll definitely click it because I trust Dennis. So that's also another way that attackers are taking advantage, right? Advantage and targeting people by establishing that trust, and then eventually getting your email and your password and progressing with the attack, right? So there are, of course, things we can do to be able to mitigate against such things, which are highly recommended. Some they are pre-built on their social media platforms. Some you have to be aware of, or rather to learn on how to identify such verticals of attack. And I believe that should give you an edge over becoming a victim.
Okay, before we go into the tips of how to, not tips, but rather strong recommendations on how to
Yeah.
protect your profile, your social accounts, your emails. We started
Mhm.
this conversation by talking about companies and how
Yes.
companies should take cybersecurity seriously.
Yes.
And we talked about opportunistic cyber attacks.
Hmm.
And of course, because, like, for example, you and I are business contacts, social media can also be an avenue by which these criminals can use to attack other people within a business. Is that correct, or am I off the track
No, no,
there?
no, no, no. You're not, Dennis. I mean, you see, at the end of the day, is how quickly can they build trust, or how quickly can they leverage on trust? Because even organizations work from a trust perspective, right? Because we've actually seen scenarios whereby a third party is breached. And then when the third party is breached, the third party trust is used against the other company. Why? Because naturally there is trust. If if probably I was providing your company with a particular service, let me call it Dennis Mburu Associates, right? So I was having Dennis Mburu with probably I am the company that comes to your legal law firm to probably maintain your machines, and I do it probably quarterly. So we have that trust. Then my company gets breached, and the attackers use my email to send over an email to you telling us, hey, Dennis, we probably this month we do want to come early. We probably and to do our maintenance probably 2 days earlier than the promised date. And kindly, we've attached a document that you can fill in for us before then. So that document is already listed, or that document has been embedded with some malicious stuff, let me say. So once you download the document and you execute the document, it executes some stuff on the machine and someone gains access. So yes, what you said is not superstitious. It's actually something which is happening, whereby when attackers get an opportunity to leverage trust, that's one of their best winning chances, because they know whatever we send over, it is naturally trusted because we have a working relationship.
Wow, I know that actually about that. I've seen that, especially targeting people who are quite prominent or known, who would
Mm,
not be, who would otherwise not be, what can I say? People would not suspect that this
yes,
person can send something. But if it's a job opportunity, if it's any kind of information that is shared, is something that people would really click, and once they get attacked, then the reputation can be quite damaged, and that can hinder future business opportunities.
absolutely.
Wow.
True, true.
Then there is this thought as well, like, once I have an antivirus on my computer, I also
Mhm.
have an antivirus on my phone.
Mm,
Does that mean that I am immune to attacks? Like, does that provide me any kind of security?
yes, yes, it does. To answer your question, yes, it's good to have these things because an antivirus is built to to look at the hygiene of your machine and spot any anomalies, right? So yes, it's very important to have it in place because it will protect you to a certain extent, right? But where we stand today, of course, we have quite different ways that people are using to bypass your antivirus. But again, it will keep off a lot of, or rather, the majority of the malicious stuff away. But I mean, it is not a silver bullet, let me call it. So you need to do more. Other than having the antivirus, there are other things that you should be able to put in place to make sure that as much as you have the antivirus, you still have other aspects built that are improving your security for your critical assets, or even for the assets that you're using within your company, or even individually. Yeah.
So now this is a place where we mention how you can protect your work devices, your personal devices, or rather your accounts as well, from malicious attacks or from malicious attackers. How best can you go about? Maybe, yeah, just mention them. I know it would be, you'd like to go in a lot of detail, but just mention simple things that people can do.
Okay.
Yeah, and then of course we'll finish up with the companies.
Okay. So let me start with social media accounts. So number one, definitely use strong passwords, right? And as you use strong passwords, don't use the same password across different websites or different social media accounts. So that puts you at a position whereby, in case that website gets hacked or breached and your password is leaked, then clearly that means that if someone catches wind of it, either as an opportunistic attack or not, then they can be able to gain access to different accounts. Okay. Number two, there's something that we call two-factor authentication, right? So this is a feature which is pre-built, I believe, in majority of the social media platforms. That is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the rest. So two-factor authentication, it is an additional feature put in place to make it harder for someone to actually compromise your account. So how does it work? It means that when Mboro has an Instagram account and he signs in to his Instagram account using his email and his password, two-factor authentication will add an additional authentication factor. So this authentication factor can be a code that is sent either to your email, or it can be a code that is generated using an application that you install on your mobile devices, right? We have examples like we have the Google Authenticator and the rest, which are free, and you can get them from either Apple Store or Google Store, Google Play Store. So when you use your username and password, now you have an additional code that you can use to log in into your account. So what does this mean? It means even if someone goes out and even if your email and passwords gets leaked, so it becomes a little bit difficult for someone to gain access to your account, because now they also need this additional code to prove that it is Dennis who's logging into the account. So this feature is available on all these on the different social media platforms, and I employ people to enable it. Okay, enable and use it. So it really helps you to protect your account, right? So the other thing is trust. You have to also understand the element of trust. Do not trust any links that you're getting from within your social media platforms, especially from people whom are unknown to you or people whom you don't expect to talk to you. Okay, so definitely those ones come with bait. And usually, if you want to know that it has bait, there's usually a sense of urgency. If you don't do this, this is what will happen to your account. If you don't do this, this is what will happen to you, right? So another thing is that there are also ways and means to have a look at those particular links to check to see if those links are actually malicious or not, right? So, for instance, if someone is sending you over to probably prompt you to input username and password, and probably they're trying to use Gmail. You'll notice that they'll try to use gmail.com, but they'll play around with the domain name or play around with the Gmail and put some funny characters. So always evaluate the link that you're clicking onto. Is it a legitimate link or not, right? And another thing, in case you receive a link from someone you trust or someone that you continuously talk to on a social media account, I advise on probably taking it a step further and asking them, hey, did you send this link to me? Or rather, I have received a link. Did it come from me or not? So that's something that I usually do. I ask that particular individual. Yeah, so those are the things that you can do. Also, another thing you can do, don't post, rather what we say, whatever you're posting on social media, take care of that. Don't post something, that in case something that someone might use, or rather, don't post anything that is too personal on a social media accounts, right? So that's also something. Take care of how much you expose publicly. So that will also help you in that regard. So when it comes to your devices, your laptops, your mobile devices, make sure at the bare minimum you have an antivirus running, and not just running. Make sure that it is also running properly. By running properly, I mean make sure it is continuously scanning your laptop or your device and continuously keep updating it. Update it continuously. And the reason for updating it is because the more you update it, the better it becomes at detecting malicious stuff on your devices. So continuously run, also continuously make sure that your machine is updated. Update your machine. I know Windows usually gives you those pop-ups. It wants to restart because it needs to install updates. Allow it to do its job. It's actually doing that to help you. I'm a victim at times. I just procrastinate fully on that, but it is very important for you to do that, because it means when Windows wants to update, it is improving the security of your device. Also for the mobile device, at times you find that it asks you to do a software update. Allow it to do that, because it means when a software update is installed, it improves the security of your device. Yeah, so I believe those are a few things that someone can do, to be able to at least protect themselves at a bare minimum.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you reminded me, because nowadays, anytime I receive a link, I have to call somebody or send a follow-up message to find out,
Yes.
especially if it is urgent. to find
Yes.
out whether it is actually them who have shared. Actually, sometimes they tell you that maybe my device has been hacked, and then you can start
Mhm.
creating awareness. Wow. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing all that information. Of course,
Mm.
that is not the end of it, but one of the things, actually, one of the reasons why I thought it was very important for us to have this conversation is you said that no, today's thieves are not like today's what can I call them? Online digital thieves are not like the ones of before who are not very clever, who tell you
Mhm.
that, oh, I am at a hospital, I need you to
Yeah.
send me something. Today's crooks are half PhDs. I think they're super learned, like they're super
Mhm.
smart, maybe even much more smarter than we are. And of course, the people who are working on the other side of security are trying or are constantly keeping up with them. So that is why it is very important to keep updating, because they are getting smarter, so we have to get smarter when it comes to security. Then finally, when we are talking about security being an afterthought when it comes to designing or developing new products, maybe perhaps you can just give a teaser of how cybersecurity should be approached, and of course, towards the end, you can mention how people can get in touch with you for those kind of services.
Absolutely. Um, so how can there are various ways to approach it. Also depends on the company, right? There are those bare minimum things a company should do, and number one is what we call create a cybersecurity program. So the program will have a series of things to do at a bare minimum, at least to push your security to a certain level, right? So there are various ways of doing it, and there are various approaches. So majority of the people approach it from frameworks perspective, which is good because a framework will get you to mature quickly and to cover the bare minimum that you need to at least get started off with security. So that's what we recommend. I'll just mention a few. We have frameworks like the critical yeah, so we have NIST. So NIST. NIST is one of the frameworks. NIST CSFs, NIST Cybersecurity Framework. We have critical security controls. So that's something someone can look into. Critical security controls. Yeah, so those I love using both the two in conjunction because they really get you up to speed with security. So as an organization, of course, you need to understand your mission, you need to understand your vision, you need to understand your objectives. And then once you've understand, okay, so what will it take for us to achieve our mission, vision, and objectives, right? And what kinds of risks will exist to probably stand as obstacles for us to achieving this. And then once you understand your risks, now you can now look into, so how do we solve these risks? And much of the time you'll find that you need to work with a certain framework to help you address the risks in a structured manner, right? So that's what we recommend. Understand your mission, your vision, your objectives, understand the possible risk, and then now choose a path, or rather choose a framework that can help you to quickly address those risks, right? So that's what we recommend, right? I can give you an example. Like on the critical security controls, we have 20 top 20 critical security controls, and one of them actually, the first one, necessitated companies to identify what are your critical assets. So once you understand what your critical assets are, okay, now you can know how do we protect these critical assets, or rather, how do we understand the risks to these critical assets. So once you understand the risks, now you can understand, okay, so these are the risks. So how now do we build controls to protect against these particular risks? So that's just an example of what can be done. But again, remember, it starts with understanding the company's mission, vision, objectives, and then understanding the risks to that. Right? Then once you understand the risks, now we create a program to address those risks. So we can like talk about the program for an entire day.
Okay, okay.
But that's the quickest approach that someone can use. And over time, you find that you mature. You mature in your program, and you become better and better in security, and you become better at handling your risks. Yeah, so you can find me in LinkedIn. I love having conversations on LinkedIn, as Kevin Kanyi. You can find me in LinkedIn. Yeah, so that's the best place to find me. We can definitely spark conversations. when it comes to cybersecurity. Yeah, and also at kevinkanyi.com. Coming up, we'll definitely get some nice stuff there. It's something that is also coming up, so keep an eye on that, and yeah, and we can keep the conversations going.
Wow, I think just to add on what Kevin has said, because you have a mission, you have a vision, you have objectives, you have the things that you want to achieve as an organization, then security becomes something that you do proactively, step by step, so that as you grow, as when you say that you want your company to grow by 40% or 50%, that means that there are also going to be certain risks that are going to be there as a result of your company's progression. So it's kind of like the cybersecurity is growing together with your company, as opposed to waiting until the time that you get hit for you to start now, um, for you to start now thinking about security, securing yourself, and kind of taking a very big step back. Then secondly, something that you have mentioned today is the security of all your staff, even on their personal social media and whichever accounts, is just as important as security for your organization. So ensure that you get in touch with Kevin to come and train your people on how to keep themselves secure, because of course your staff are trusted, and if there's a breach of trust on their part, that could also impact on your company, organization, or business, be it of whichever size, negatively as well. Thank you very much, Kevin, for coming and sharing this. I know that there is something that is cooking, but when the time comes to unleash it, then we will definitely have another conversation, or maybe have a couple before that, as we help to enlighten people across the continent about cybersecurity. Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.